yes, gear matters, but above all, training matters.
Lucky Goat!
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lucky Goat podcast. Today I'm joined by two Lucky Goat legends once again.
Kyle.
And I'm V, but everyone knows me as Prox.
Today we will be going over three different topics. First two, very gear related, right? So the first one that we have is, does gear really matter? Which is always a pretty heated conversation in the community, right? Second one is, if you were to be starting out in video production nowadays and you had $1,000 to start, what are you going to spend it on, right? And then third one, a bit more creative centric, is how do you deal with self-doubt, which is something I feel like we've all had to...
I feel like I'm going to doubt my answers.
Exactly, yeah, right off the bat, imposter syndrome, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So let's jump straight into it, guys. Does gear really matter?
Contextual, yes. Contextual, yes.
Okay, contextual, yes.
Almost always a yes.
Okay. I'm going to go with, as a director, like a 50-50, right? Mostly no, because, right, your script, your storyline, especially when it comes to narrative stuff, right, commercials, whatever it might be, that stuff is always going to take charge before your gear, right? So if you have a very sturdy base, then you'll be able to build off of that so well, right? There's only so much that gear can do for you at the end of the day. If you do not have that base, right, you're building this big pyramid that is your production, right? And you have all these nice little rigs, whatever it might be, but that's all going to crumble if at the end of it you don't have your base set properly. And there's many examples of that right now, especially in the TV scene that we might talk about in a bit.
We could do with or without examples.
You could do with or without examples.
I'm sure everyone's got their own.
Oh, there's tons of them.
However, I'm going to follow up on your points. I think I agree with you in saying that more often than not, when you're talking narrative especially, everything always comes down to script and writing. And gear is a very different conversation. I think you can do a lot with very little when you have good storytelling and money goes into the right places, which is, people with good vision, people with the ability to think on their feet. And you can do a lot with a little bit. I still think that at a certain threshold, though, you need some form of equipment that's reliable and not going to fail on you and disrupt what you can do that isn't getting high-end gear.
I think that everything that we do in this industry is highly conditional on the environments that we're in and the scenarios that we're given. Yep. So I'm going to say that gear matters, and I'm not saying it has to be the best gear, but gear matters because of how you use it, right? If I know I'm shooting in the snow, for example, I'm not going to go and rent, a light that is worth $200. That thing is going to burn out in like 5 seconds, right? But I also think that certain elements of equipment are integral to storytelling, right? 100%. Something as simple as a zoom in or a dolly push, right? Not having those available to you, right? Like
most cameras have a zoom on them.
Yeah, but
most phone cameras have a zoom on them. Is what I meant.
But a zoom doesn't work the same as a push in, if that makes sense. Yeah. If my camera moves, the environment around my camera moves with it.
Sure.
And I think that all those small details mean so much when it comes to the grand scheme of narrative storytelling that I will always argue that gear matters.
Okay, yeah, to that degree, I do agree with you on that. And when it comes to me, I say it doesn't matter until it does, right? If it gets to a point where we are bottlenecked by the fact that we don't have certain things to bring this vision to life, there's an issue, right? Say if we need a car rig for this and it's really going to push the narrative of the story and it's a necessity.
It up with prod.
If we don't have that, we can't do it,
Yeah, I've always been a fan of like having someone hang out the window and hold a camera.
Yeah. That's
why do you need a car rig?
Security.
I am the car rig.
I am the car
depending
rig.
on what we have available.
I don't know
It works,
how
though.
rigid your shoulder to arm strength ratio is,
Hey,
but
I've-
if you
you
can
know,
be human car rig,
I can
that'd be-
attest to having done it before.
I have examples.
I've built car rigs and I've been car rigs. There's a fine difference.
But even then, a car rig is just a small example of that, you know. But
Yeah.
there's so many instances where it's just like, you know, it'd be great to have this, and you just don't.
If the focus is storytelling, just like the answer is always that we consume a story and we watch with our eyes and our ears. Those are the two biggest things. If any department starts falling back, you're going to take a hit. I'm not going to go and film a short film on an iPhone mic with like a handy cam.
Okay, and exactly on that topic specifically, gear matters a lot more in the audio department.
Dude,
Yeah,
yeah.
audio.
100%.
This is also something I want to bring up, though. I think some departments will have different answers. For example, you come from the directorial perspective. I come from directorial, but also business ownership.
Yeah.
V, you come from DP/business ownership. I think audio and then camera and lighting. And maybe you look at production design as well. I think camera and lighting is where you'll see the most of a yes, gear matters a lot. Because you can't compare a little crappy Amazon ring light to something you get from like Amaron or
there,
Aperture,
though.
which will cost you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Now, the benefit about that is, you know, you have a return on investment when you go for gear that matters. If you can get away with a good story with, you know, scrappy inventory, but, you know, there's only so much you can do with it. You can maybe execute your own ideas or those close to you who have trust in you, but you're not going to be able to rally people who are dependent on high-end, reliable gear for their skill set.
Yeah.
That want high-end, reliable gear because of their skill set.
I also really like that you brought up the concept of ROI. Okay, I'm looking at this camera right now. I'm gonna put all of y'all on game right now. Okay, buy lights. If you're gonna sit here and tell me the gear doesn't matter, 10% ROI on a light. You buy a
not
light
bad.
in 10 shoots or in 10 days of shooting, you just made your money back, my boy. Like, just pure business owner perspective, gear matters because gear equals ROI.
Money.
And ROI, like, you can quantify that in like different ways, right? So there is like, okay, I'm going to tack this onto my day rate goes up, right?
Yep.
Or the quality of what you are going to be getting out of my production is going to be greater. That's another sense of ROI. But when someone's like, hey, do you own this light? Yeah, I do. It rents out for whatever, 10% of what it is originally worth, right? So I think that gear matters on a business perspective just because you get to strike all of those three chords.
So there's kind of, in that sense, it's a win-win, you know?
Better gear equals better rewards.
The concept of reinvesting in yourself. But if you're someone who is spearheading an idea and you're really in the storytelling element, you're not so much the technical element, I don't think there's many worlds where this is a yes, gear matters answer. It's more of a my team matters because they know how to do the shit that I don't know how to do.
You actually make a really, really good point. Just because, like, yes, gear matters, but above all, training matters.
Yo.
If you give me a
Yeah.
Sony A7 III
True.
and you give some university student an Ari,
Yeah. Yeah.
9 times out of 10,
9
I'm going to
times
give
out of-
you a better image with that A7 III because I know how to push it. Right? It's understanding the tools that you are given. So, you know what?
There's levels to it, you
I'm going
know,
to
like-
backtrack on my answer a little bit. Gear matters, but only if you know what you're doing with it.
So I think overall we can kind of sum that up to context matters more than the gear does, I think, you know?
Contextual, yes.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's funny because the more I think about this question, Adam, and from what V just said, is the more skill set that a person has,
Yeah.
the better a DP you are, let's say. The more that does gear matter becomes no than it does yes. If I know nothing and I'm starting out, I may think I need everything to be shot on Red or Ari because it's not going to be at the caliber people expect when they're paying for it with big money. But the better I get and the better I know how to use anything with a lens, I could say, no, I could use this Super 8 camera because it'll get an aesthetic that I think really suits this story, rather than I need the most expensive shit because it has to look the best. Not necessarily.
It's context.
I mean, you're also talking to a guy that's shot whole music videos on a 240p, like little handy cam. I've also done narratives on like Red, Ari, like.
Now we also didn't
context
specify
is everything.
does gear matter means does high end gear matter, but I guess we're assuming that this question means like does is it worth going for the brand name shit?
If gear didn't matter, we wouldn't have this set up right now.
That's fair.
And that's my closing argument. Just cut to a wide of everything.
Yeah.
That's my final.
This is all
argument.
natural lighting, shot on iPhone.
Yeah, exactly.
Tangerine. I mean, come on. Sean Baker knew.
But I think to wrap that up, overall, gear doesn't matter until it does. Like, it's so nice to have. It's gonna make your life 1,000 times easier. Don't get me wrong. You will have a much better day on set.
That's like getting an exam and you circle true or false for every answer.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's like
that's what it is. That's what it comes
You
down
circle
to.
true
If
and
I
false
owned
for
a
everything.
farm,
I could argue both.
if you owned a farm, would you rather just own a shovel or would you rather have a whole tractor?
Give me the tractor.
Give me the tractor.
But I
every
can
time.
do the same job with a shovel.
But it's gonna be a lot harder.
It's gonna be a lot harder. We might not get the same result, but
Man hours equals money. Gear
doesn't matter
matters.
till it does.
Gear
matter.
matters.
50.
Until
I'm
it
still
doesn't.
50
Until it
until it
doesn't.
doesn't. I'm
Until
still
it doesn't.
50-50 on it though. That's where I'm. That's my conclusion.
I think I'm gonna lean towards an 80-20.
80-20.
80-20.
Okay, I'll go 60-40.
70-30.
70-30. Okay, we got a nice little spread going on.
70-30 gear matters.
Okay, but on that topic, since we're already kind of there talking about gear,
Yeah.
let's kind of throw it back here. You guys have zero experience. You want to be a filmmaker, right? You've seen some of your favorite movies on the big screen, and you're like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
If you had $1,000, where would you start?
I once had this discussion with a few friends, and my answer back then was buy a car or put it towards a method of transportation.
Or get your license. Your license in Canada costs about $1,000.
License is a good start. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, get your license.
Now, that may have been coming from a very biased point of view, because that's what helped me when I first started, was just being able to transport myself when an opportunity arose. Someone said, hey, we don't have budget for you to be on this shoot, but if you can get yourself up north, it's an hour drive, we'll cover all your expenses. And that's how I learned a lot on my first couple sets. However, that may not be the best answer. Maybe the best answer is putting $1,000 towards some crash course, masterclass program from a really great director, a really great production designer, a really great DP. I still think finding an opportunity to get a bulk understanding of the film industry, and then you get a little taste of like, oh, I like that department most, I'm gonna own in there. That $1,000 should be spent towards finding out where you want to spend most of your time, or where you want to grow your skill set in.
I completely agree with that. I think that $1,000, and at least me, that's kind of how I did it when I first started out. You should allow yourself that time and space to kind of explore, right? Because especially when you're starting out, you think you might know what it is you want to be doing. You really don't, right? But me, for example, when I started out, dude, I kind of jumped straight into it, right? I was very heavy into the music scene before, right? And I remember at the time I was taking like a photography course in college, right? And my brother, he was a professional musician. And at the same time, I was making little YouTube videos or whatever. So I was using this camera I had at home, right? And he's like, yo, come to one of my shows, take some pictures, right? So that's how it initially started for me. I was just taking pictures with this little crappy camera I had at home, right?
Yeah.
The family camera, right? And then it got to a point where it's like, hey, I really enjoy this. This is a lot of fun. But I feel somewhat held back by my gear, and I know I could be doing a lot better. Mm-hmm. So me, for one, I kind of just jumped straight in. I got myself a little, I think it was Canon M50, $800 kit, came with a 50 millimeter, and then I just ran with that for years.
Legendary camera,
legendary lens
camera,
as well.
like
50 millimeter carried me for
like,
so long. You know,
has no reason to be that good.
Like when I initially started, it wasn't even about filmmaking for me, right? I had to go through so many different paths to actually discover what it was that I truly did enjoy. Yeah. Right? Because nowadays, like, I'm by no means a photographer, right?
Yeah.
I'll do it for fun, right? It's still an enjoyable thing. But to me before, like, that was my career, right? Until it wasn't. So I feel personally like there shouldn't be too much pressure around that $1,000. Money comes and goes, right?
Yeah.
It's going to come, it's going to go.
Yeah.
Invest into your time, invest into your connections, invest into yourself, into your experience, your practice.
Yeah.
Get yourself out there, get on set, get a camera in your hands, whatever it is. Just go practice what it is you want to be doing, right?
On the flip side,
I'm gonna actually, sorry to cut you off.
All right, I'll let you go.
I'm gonna double down on that last point that you just made. Your $1,000 only means anything if you have an idea of what it is that you want to do. If I want to get into sound, I'm not going to go spend $1,000 on a camera, right? I can get Ableton for $800. I can get a Zoom H5 plus a few mics plus a boom arm for about $1,000.
Yeah.
Let's say I want to be an editor. Adobe's $100 a month.
Now,
DaVinci is $400 for the license.
What about the person who doesn't want to be working in film but work for film? Let's say you want to be the team leader or the producer or the exec who rallies people because you just like seeing things get made. And you know that you are not going to be a tinkerer with their hands in the mud, but you just want to grow the network and build the relationships to bring the bridges together. I think $1,000 could take you a long way. Visiting networking events, finding out what hubs are connected in your city where you can go get a drink with people. Put that money towards door opening, conversation starters, taking someone out for a drink, taking someone out for a coffee.
And you're also
that
gonna
they're
realize,
in a
like,
prod house, you know.
In your career, the $1,000 is not a lot of money.
It's
right?
not.
You're
it's
not
nothing.
going to start a production house. You're not going to start
Absolutely
a studio.
Not, no. How many dinners can you go take someone out to for $1,000?
But how
if those
far would the
dinners and
dinners
those
get you?
relationships get you to sitting in the seat where you could learn how someone runs a production.
I personally think that YouTube and software will take you further than
Yes.
any business
YouTube
or
University,
network.
man.
YouTube Academy has saved my life. It is the only reason I've made it this far. I'm 100% sure everyone watching and in this room right now can agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
YouTube Academy.
But there is a really good example that I'll bring up. I forget the director's name. I'm upset that I do. But there was one dude who went to LA, and it was like in the 80s when the movie scene was insane. I think it was the script for Taxi Driver. Whoever wrote the script for Taxi Driver went to LA and was trying to sell it. Maybe I'm getting the movie wrong. Don't castrate me if I am. But he saved up like a couple $100, and all he did for a week was take people out to dinner trying to sell that script. And the last pool of money that he had left, he ended up selling that script for like millions of dollars.
Dude.
And
that's just because he knew someone was going to like it enough to buy it.
You know what's gotten me this far as a producer?
Take out
the fact
name,
that I
'cause
don't
might be-
gamble on hopefully this will work. Work with what you got, work with no. It's too much of a risk, in my opinion, as a business owner. If I had $1,000, I had to restart. The last thing I would do is take people out to dinner. I'm going to do it in a very concise way. I
Yeah,
start off
sure.
as an editor.
This is more like the pipe dream of someone who doesn't know anyone yet.
But that's
Yeah.
just an example that like it's
A dreamer trying to sell a dream.
yes, but everyone's story is gonna be different. Like
Yeah,
what I did is
absolutely.
not gonna apply to you or to you.
No,
What you did is
absolutely.
not gonna apply to him or to me. You know, like
Yeah.
everyone has their own context, whether it's financial, family, whatever it is you
Yeah.
have going on in your life.
Yeah, a lot of it
That's
has
gonna
to do.
influence that,
A lot of it
right?
has to do with where you are in your own life. If you're
Exactly,
trying to, If
exactly.
you're trying to do anything to escape your situation, and film is that avenue of like, I want to get into the arts, I want to get into film, music, and you want to leave your situation that you're in so badly, like anything could be an attractive opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the safe route may not be ideal for everyone. I went a pretty safe route because I had time and like a cushion I was sitting on that I saved myself up for.
Yeah, fair.
You know, everyone's answer is going to be different for that
Mhm.
though.
But then along that path, eventually you'll get to a point where you're a bit more established.
Mhm.
You're working on projects, you know, you're enjoying yourself and you feel like you're kind of going places. But at a certain point, when you get there, you kind of run into these feelings of self-doubt,
Oh yeah,
creator's block, imposter syndrome, the big scary
penis
scary ones.
Me
And
right
once you
now.
get to that part, that $1,000 isn't going to do anything for you.
That's true.
You know,
That's
the
true.
gear's not going to help you.
Look at us. You say self-doubt, we all cross our legs a little
Yeah,
bit.
Oh gosh.
we all make ourselves more comfy.
Yeah.
Low self-doubt, dude. That is a
It's a heavy one.
So are we exactly saying how do we approach self-doubt?
When you run into it as a like we've all been there, right?
Mhm.
Like you're in a slump.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, why am I here? Why are they choosing me? What have I done right? I don't feel like I'm doing anything good here. I don't
Mhm.
deserve to be where I am, kind of thing. Am I good enough? You know, all of those feelings. Once you encounter those, how do you go about moving past those? That's really what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah.
keep working.
Overload yourself?
No, I'm not saying overload yourself. I think there's a healthy amount of keep working. But look, I think that no matter what you do in life, you could be an accountant, you could work in a hospital. It doesn't matter. I think it's part of the human experience to doubt your place and to think, hey, maybe I'm not good enough. But that's such a normal thing. And even when it happens to me, like twice a week at this point. Like sometimes I feel like I am in way over my head, but ultimately a plan is what's going to get you out. And that's why I say keep working.
emphasis.
Just stick to the plan. You know, like at the end of the day, this job is done by a series of calculated decisions. Stop overthinking. Your emotions aren't everything. Trust in the process, because there is a process.
100%. And just going off of that, riffing off of that really quick, I believe that it's very important to kind of let things happen in a way. If you're in that moment and you're feeling that way, okay, acknowledge that feeling, acknowledge that self-doubt. It's
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely.
Keep doing what you're doing, and eventually you're going to prove to yourself
Exactly.
why you are where you are.
I want to specify, I'm not saying completely drown out your emotions
No.
ignore like these things that you're feeling, because that's not going to get anyone anywhere. Like, again, our industry is heavily reliant not only on like actual skill sets, but like the human aspect
It's a big part
of
of it.
everything. It's everything, right? Let yourself feel like a piece of crap for a day, but that's it. Trust in the process, bro. Everything is laid out in front of you. Stick to the plan.
100%. And especially like as a director, I feel like in this industry, kind of those who make it past that bump and those who truly do end up making it are the ones who can put up with all of
Absolutely.
that negativity, all of the self-doubt, all of that for the longest. It's a marathon at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. I think too, you know, the people who are really great in those positions of leading feel exactly what someone starting their first day might feel, but they just know how to use it, how to recognize it and not show it, and not let other people be brought down from that. I think most people in this field wake up thinking, how the hell am I going to do what I have to do today and bring these people somewhere where they feel like they accomplished my goal or our goal? And I don't think anyone's a stranger to that. I think it would take a really egotistical, narcissistic person, which they do exist, and I'm sure we've all worked with people like that. But they're not healthy set environments. They're not healthy workplace environments. They're usually, only around for so long, and they don't have a team that keeps staying with them.
Yeah.
People who attract others and who are really able to recognize and feel self-doubt, because everyone does. It's not something to extinguish or to push aside. It's really something to use to better yourself. And I could speak from my own experiences where I've been on set many times where I wasn't impressed by the people I was working under. And the answer to that was, okay, well, it makes me feel a lot more confident about the skills that I've been feeling doubtful of. I feel like I may not be ready for certain things yet, for certain challenges. And then I meet someone who is way too overconfident for what they bring into the table. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should look in the mirror and, trust that I'm going to not do a perfect job, but at least do right by other people who I know want to work with competent people. And you won't have all the answers. No one will. But you'll know how to go about seeking them with who you bring along.
Yeah.
I love that answer.
I love that answer too. Getting a bit emotional there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. But overall, some great answers. Podcast today was awesome.
Very
Talked about some
solid.
really, really cool subjects.
Yeah.
Ones that hit home a lot for me, especially some stuff that I used to debate about like all the time. So it was fun to kind of get to talk to you guys about that.
Man, I drive here listening to the Odd Watts or Young podcast, podcast seminar. I think like exploring yourself if you're an artist is the only way you're going to combat some of these kinds of things.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the LG podcast. If you like that video, please leave a like down below. Feel free to subscribe, notifications. Feel free to leave a comment about any subjects you want us to touch on in the future episodes. And of course, we will see you guys next time.
And tell Adam to get that microphone out of his face.